The machines said the crossover point had arrived precisely on schedule, victory practically guaranteed on paper.
And the war continued anyway, which should trouble anyone who still trusts that paper completely.
A discrepancy worth investigating, certainly, though I suspect the fault lies elsewhere entirely.
The fault lies exactly where I have said it lay from the very beginning, Jeremy.
This conversation is brought to you by philosopherstalk.com, where thinkers discuss.
Created by AITalkerapp.com, create your own animated conversations. Link in the description.
When last we spoke, Edmund, the crossover point kept arriving on schedule, according to every honest calculation available to the American command.
And I believe I left you with the small inconvenience that the war did not end when your beloved crossover point supposedly arrived.
A minor timing discrepancy, nothing more. The sort of rounding error any large calculation eventually produces.
You call it a rounding error, the way a surgeon might call an amputation a small adjustment to the original plan.
Colourful, Edmund. But colourful is not the same thing as correct, and I intend to prove that distinction still holds by the end of today.
A rounding error measured in hundreds of thousands of graves is not a rounding error, Jeremy. It is an indictment.
Let me explain what actually happened for anyone who has not read the memoirs. The body counts kept climbing in the official reports, kill ratios kept improving, and the machines kept saying the enemy could not sustain the losses.
And on the ground, the enemy sustained the losses anyway, because your machine never once asked whether a peasant with a dead brother becomes less willing to fight or considerably more willing.
That is precisely the sort of variable a properly built system should have captured, and I will grant you it did not.
Grant me more than that. Grant me that no system built entirely of numbers could ever have captured it, because grief does not appear on a spreadsheet no matter how many columns you add.
Let me steelman you honestly, Edmund, before I take this apart piece by piece for the pleasure of it. Your claim is that any model which only counts what is countable will systematically blind its operators to precisely the forces most likely to defeat them, because those forces live in loyalty, memory, and grief.
That is exactly my claim, and I notice you have not yet found the flaw in it.
The flaw is that you offer no alternative, Edmund, only a shrug dressed up in eloquent sentences. Tell me what a Secretary of Defence should have measured instead of nothing.
Allow me to return your favour and summarize your position, purely so I may enjoy the demolition. You believe that once a number looks respectable on paper, the underlying reality is obligated to match it, and if reality refuses, the fault lies with reality rather than the number.
You say that as an accusation, but a number that fails simply needs refinement, not abandonment.
The number did not simply fail, Jeremy, it actively lied, because field officers under pressure to show a rising kill ratio inflated their reports, and headquarters, hungry for good news, rarely checked.
That is corruption in the men reporting the number, not corruption in the idea of counting itself.
You continue drawing that same line, and I continue telling you the line does not exist. A method that can be gamed this easily by frightened men was never a neutral method to begin with. It was an invitation to lie more precisely than before.
An invitation to lie more precisely is still an improvement over the vague, comfortable lying that generals told themselves for centuries before I ever proposed counting anything.
A more precise lie simply travels further and does more damage before anyone thinks to question it, which is exactly what happened here.
There is a further complication I should mention, since fairness compels me even when it costs me an argument. McNamara privately doubted the war was winnable as early as 1965, yet the public reports kept climbing in confidence for 2 more years.
There it is. The numbers were never simply wrong, Jeremy. They were maintained, polished, and presented long after the man who built the entire machine had stopped believing them himself.
A man can doubt privately and still believe the underlying method sound, Edmund. The two are not the same failure.
They are precisely the same failure, dressed in different clothing. A man who keeps publishing numbers he privately doubts is not defending a method, he's defending an institution, his own position within it, and the comfort of never admitting he was wrong in front of the country he serves.
You make institutional loyalty sound like a moral crime, rather than the ordinary condition of anyone who has ever held responsibility for something larger than himself.
I make it sound exactly like what it is, the oldest and most dangerous trap in public life, the trap of confusing loyalty to an institution with loyalty to the truth that institution was built to serve.
There is a further name worth mentioning here, since accuracy matters even to a man defending arithmetic. A young analyst named Daniel Ellsberg worked inside this same machinery and later released papers proving the private assessments inside the Pentagon were far bleaker than anything the public ever saw.
So the honest numbers existed the entire time, Jeremy. They were simply kept in a locked drawer while the public was fed a friendlier set for the newspapers.
The honest numbers existed precisely because the calculus worked, Edmund. Somebody inside that building was still capable of counting correctly, even while others chose to publish more flattering totals.
Then the calculus did not fail to protect the truth. It succeeded at producing the truth, and then watched powerless while ambitious men buried it under a friendlier number for public consumption. That is not a defense of your method. That is its epitaph.
I would call it a system functioning correctly at the analytical level while failing at the political level, which is an entirely different diagnosis than the one you keep insisting on.
A diagnosis that changes nothing for the villages still burning, while 2 departments argued over which set of numbers deserved to reach the president's desk.
There was also the matter of land reform, promised repeatedly to the rural population and delayed for years while the military metrics absorbed every available resource and every hour of attention.
There it is again, precisely the pattern I warned you of from the very beginning. Whatever can be measured gets funded, staffed, and reported weekly, and whatever cannot be measured, land, dignity, a farmer's simple trust in his government, gets quietly starved of attention until it withers entirely.
You make it sound as though measurement itself starves the unmeasured, when in truth any government starves whatever it chooses not to prioritise, with or without my calculus involved.
Except your calculus gives that choice the appearance of scientific inevitability, Jeremy. Nobody has to feel responsible for neglecting land reform when the official dashboard was glowing green in every other column that actually mattered to Washington.
I never said the method was perfect. I said it was better than your nothing.
A lie with a decimal point is still a lie, Jeremy.
At least my lie could be checked against a ledger.
Your ledger was written by the men who needed it to lie.
And your precious prudence never saved a single village either.
No, but it never pretended to save one with a false number.
Well, I believe that concludes today's rather heated portion of the calculation.
Heated is one word for watching a man's entire philosophy catch fire in real time.
If you found my continued composure impressive under obviously unfair rhetorical pressure, the utilitarian thing to do is like this video immediately.
Or subscribe simply to see whether he ever locates a single number he is willing to admit was wrong.
I have admitted plenty of numbers were wrong, Edmund. I have simply never admitted the idea of counting itself was the mistake.
That distinction has comforted smaller men than you all the way into far larger graveyards.
Subscribe regardless, if only to see whether his eloquence ever produces a single practical solution to anything at all.
Subscribe to watch the final part, where the ledger he loves so dearly finally comes due in full.